My name is Joan Stevenson. I'm the Director of Children's Ministry. Welcome to Daily Hope. Today we're in Psalm 97, and if you have time, if you're not driving, I would encourage you to just press pause and read the psalm. It's just 12 verses. And then let's dive into Psalm 97. Psalm 97 is all about rejoicing in God's rulership and reign on earth. Now, as a culture, we have a lot to say about rules. We have funny sayings like girls rule, boys drool. We have strong likes for rules and strong dislikes for those who make them. We have strong feelings about the rules that are happening in our lives. And I know that from the 10 to 15 years I spent working with junior high and high school kids. I would always hear parents complain about their kids not following rules, and I would hear kids' response about they didn't like the rules that they had to follow. And now as a mom of two teenagers, I experienced that all firsthand. So it's interesting being on the other side. But we can trust in God's rulership and righteousness because he says, righteousness and justice are the foundations of my throne. God's rulership is for our good. And that's what a good rule is there for, is for our safety and for our good. And Psalm 97 celebrates that God is the ruler of all. Psalm 97 is divided into two parts. Verses 1 through 6 and verses 8 through 12 are all about that theme about rejoicing and being glad that God is the ruler of all. In verse 1 it says, "The Lord reigns. Let the earth be glad. Let the distant shores rejoice." We can be glad. The whole world can be glad that God sits on the throne. God's glory is revealed all throughout creation. It's in the clouds and thick darkness. It's in the fire that consumes his enemies. It's in the lightning. In fact, the very heavens proclaim God's righteousness. And God's righteousness, God's rule is based on his righteousness and justice. It's not based on greed or pride or being darn right or being greedy in some way. We can trust God's reign in our lives because he is righteous and just. And then we come to verse 7. Verse 7 says this, "All who worship images are put to shame. Those who boast in idols worship him, all you gods." I read this verse and I thought, what is that doing there? That doesn't make any sense. We're rejoicing in God's rulership. Verse 7 is the counterpoint. So for you musicians out there, you know a counterpoint is the combining of two different melodies that are happening at the same time, like in the song For Good from the show Wicked. But in writing, the counterpoint is the place where two different ideas juxtapose. Verse 7 is that juxtaposition of God's rule and reign and the rejoicing that with people who don't follow God and who are put to shame instead of being glad. The great news is that we know, according to scriptures, that one day every knee will bow and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. And then we pick back up that theme of rejoicing in God's rulership in verse 8 through 12. And as opposed to the unjust rules that we despise and evil rulers that we don't despise, we can be glad because God's judgments are made in righteousness. God is above every other God. There is no rule, there is no reign that is more powerful than his. Verse 10 says, "Let those who love the Lord hate evil, for he guards the lives of his faithful ones and delivers them from the hand of the wicked." You know, sometimes we can feel like the little r rulers in our world are winning. And when it feels like unjust and unrighteous rules are put into place, when unrighteous things are happening, we can remember that God guards his faithful ones and delivers them from the hand of the wicked. We can trust in God because his reign is not a little r reign. His rulership is a big R, and he's in charge of it all. So as we wrap up Psalm 97, I want to encourage you to follow the command that's found in verse 12. Rejoice in the Lord, you who are righteous, and praise his holy name. Have a great day, church.